Welcome to the Women Inspire Aspire podcast. In this episode, we are talking to Saloni Miglani about her international experiences. Hi, Saloni. Thank you so much for accepting my invite to appear in the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm super excited to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me.
It's wonderful to have you here. You have traveled to so many places. You have so much of wide variety of experiences. Let's decipher them one by one. But before that, could you please give a background about yourself, where you are from, what do you do, etc.?
Yeah, sure. Technically and on paper from India, but I only moved to India 6 years ago. I was lucky enough to grow up across Egypt and the UK, and then I went and lived in Mexico and China, Singapore, Malaysia. So I covered a lot of countries in both studying and working. And then an opportunity in India came my way in 2019. And so it's kind of my first time exploring and experiencing my passport country. I actually came here for a management consulting opportunity. And then once lockdowns hit, I decided to start my own blog out of nowhere. It seems like it just came out of me. It was waiting. It was perhaps trapped. Started this blog. The rest is kind of history. My career changed. I was lucky enough that a tech recruiter found my blog on Twitter, asked me, have you ever thought about changing careers? And that's when I switched from management consulting to content writing and tech. Yeah, that's like a kind of short summary of what I've been up to.
So let's talk a bit about your childhood value systems that have shaped the person that you are today.
Yeah, that's such a fantastic question. I think it has shaped me way more than I expected it to, my childhood in general. I give it all pretty much to my dad. He is a super father, a single parent who raised me and my brother. And he, without me realizing it at the time, I only realize it now, he instilled this sense of adventure and wonder and curiosity about the world in us from a very young age. And that's not just because we were traveling a lot, but it was just curiosity about the world. We could be sitting in Cairo and he'd be asking us questions or telling us stories of other places he'd been or places he'd want to go. And so from a very young age, I had this sense of kind of almost restlessness that I want to see it all, I want to do it all. And even after graduating from university, that's kind of the life I've lived, one of endless curiosity. Yeah, and that's why I've ended up living in so many countries.
Yeah, and curiosity is so important in life, not just for learning but also for living. So it's great that you have that quality. Let's talk a bit about your international experiences. You said that you have lived in 6 countries. So let's start one by one. Why don't you describe about the first country that you lived in and then move on from there?
Yeah, sure. So in my little cliff notes, I missed out a few countries. I actually left India when I was just 2 to 3 weeks old.
Hmm.
And that was dad instilling the nomadic energy in me straight away. So I actually went to nursery in Dubai. And then when I was around 2 years old, dad's job moved to Egypt. So I don't remember much of growing up in Dubai, but Cairo was definitely a beautiful experience. We genuinely had like school trips to the pyramids and to famous sites, and like we were living, witnessing all this history and culture around us. So I think in a way that also shaped me. Then when I was 11, dad sent me off to boarding school in the UK because, I mean, very forward thinking as always. At the time, education wasn't very good in Cairo. So he sent me away, and that was the first time I've had to adapt. It was a huge shift. He sent me to a small town in the countryside in England. I didn't know anyone. My school was all like 99% white. I was in a different continent to my family, and I was just 11. So I think that experience was really difficult. The first 2 years, I was desperate to come home. And my dad kept me afloat saying, no, this is good for your future. You'll like this. You'll enjoy it. It'll help you in the future. And long story short, I ended up there for 7 years, had the time of my life, developed great connections and roots in the UK, and I ended up doing my undergraduate degree there as well.
So, what are the positive aspects as well as the negative aspects of your living in UK for the sake of the audience?
Yeah, I mean, see, looking at it retrospectively, I can talk about the pros and cons much more easily. Back when I was living in the UK, I really thought it was all rosy. And I thought, oh my gosh, the British life is the best life. I don't want to live anywhere else. And coming to India was definitely not on my list. So when it comes to pros and cons, I think, see, England back then and now is very easy to live in. There's very little friction. That it's very walkable, things are available easily, things get done when they say they'll get done. It's great for someone who wants like a regimented, predictable life, which is really what I wanted for myself and enjoyed for a good 11 years in the UK. But something I didn't realize during my time there that I realize now is there's this huge lack of spontaneity. And that means a lack of kind of closeness with friends. With my friends in India, we are much closer. We share a stronger bond. We share a lot of history and stories. And even though these are people I might have just met a year ago versus like 11 years of friendship in the UK, I feel closer to a lot of my Indian friends because that's that sense of you can show up anytime, you can meet them anytime. There's a
Hmm.
spontaneity. People are there for you as well in a much more meaningful way. So, in terms of community, I feel like England isn't as robust as India.
Right. So tell us about the next country.
The next country, right. So I studied Spanish at university as my major. So that meant living a year abroad in a Spanish speaking country. Now, the done thing, quote unquote, was to go live in Spain. That's what I think 95% of the class did that.
Hmm.
But for some reason, Spain wasn't daring or adventurous enough for me. I thought, I can go to Spain anytime. Why don't I go try Latin America? So, first I tried to get a placement in Argentina, but my grades weren't good enough. So, then I chose Mexico.
Hmm.
And, every single person I told this plan to advised me against it. They said, please, don't go there. Don't go to Mexico. It's dangerous. All the news and things. The only person who did encourage me was dad.
Hmm.
He said, this is exactly right for you. And I ended up having the time of my life. Again, very similar culture to India. I ended up learning the language pretty quickly because everyone there was so friendly, ready to open up their arms and welcome you in their community. Lived in northern Mexico for a year and I studied at a Mexican university in Spanish. Yeah, we basically studied all week and then on the weekends there was quite a lot of us from abroad. Like I said, the Mexicans were really friendly, so they made us part of their groups and every weekend we'd travel with them to their hometowns. Through visiting all my friends' hometowns, we managed to explore a lot of Mexico.
Okay, so just curious, why didn't you go to Paraguay or Uruguay?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, the short answer is those were not options. They were options in the sense that I could go out there and look for placements myself, but they are not like universities that we had official agreements with.
Hmm.
And for some reason, my heart was really set on Argentina. Now, looking back, I don't know why, because I can't imagine anywhere warmer than Mexico and friendlier. So it was really between Argentina and Mexico in my head.
Hmm. Okay. So, while in Mexico, did you experience any kind of dance forms or food that's specific to Mexico?
I think when it comes to Mexican food, that's a cuisine I really connected with. And that is very interesting for me to be saying because I am not at all a foodie. I don't like cooking. I'm not excited by food. I really look at food as like sustenance. Like I need to have this in order to carry on with the day. But Mexico changed that for me completely. The way, again, it was something that, growing up in the UK, people just looked at food like that. The majority of people, a quick sandwich for lunch and you're good. It's food is not an event. But when I moved to Mexico, food really is an event. Like lunch breaks would go on for like an hour and a half. And the variety, like the absolute variety that you could even go the whole year in Mexico without having the same meal twice. Like even within tacos, there are so many different varieties of tacos, different combinations. So I really fell in love with the food there. And more than the food itself, just the culture surrounding it.
Great, great, wonderful. And from Mexico, where did you move next?
So then after Mexico, I was supposed to go back and finish my degree, but we needed to save up more money. A few financial difficulties came our way. Dad was trying his best to handle it all, but I needed to take, originally it was supposed to be 1 year. It turned into 3 years away from university to save up for the next final year. So life threw me a bit of a curveball then because I kind of watched all my friends go finish their final year and graduate, and I was kind of stuck. I was like, okay, so I can't go back and graduate. It was quite heart wrenching at the time. Then I realized that, look, we might as well make the most of this time off I had. I originally had just a year, so I packed up my bags and moved to China to teach English.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, honest, to be super candid, at the time I did it because I heard the money was good and the need of the hour was money. So that's initially why I signed up for it. I, truth be told, was not excited by teaching or interested. I had never done it. So I managed to get a really good English teaching job in Beijing, and I ended up spending close to a year there and had the absolute time of my life. This time, less so because of people and culture, because I was working so much, but more so because of the actual act of teaching. I realized how incredibly fulfilling it is to teach, to share something with people who are excited to learn. And I was teaching like 5 to 6 year old kids. So
Okay.
they were very, yeah, enthusiastic and fun to teach.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can figure that. How long did you stay in China?
Yes, I was in China for 10 months. 10 months because I thought I'd be going back to finish my degree. So I kind of wrapped things up. Spent 10 months and I traveled every weekend. So sometimes take the train to, I went to Harbin, Shanghai, loads of different cities. And looking back, that was honestly one of the most fun years of my career because I realized that I could work and do something incredibly fulfilling, but then also go explore on the weekend and not feel like, I'm missing out on time to travel.
Did you go to Hong Kong also?
No, I didn't make it to Hong Kong. That was, at the end of my time in China, it was either go visit Vietnam or visit Hong Kong, and for some reason I chose Vietnam.
Okay, that's cool. So when did you go to Singapore and Malaysia?
Yes, so then after that year in China, family financial issues continued. So took another year. See, right now when I say all this, it sounds really exciting, but at the time I really struggled with this notion of being behind because everyone, was getting into their careers. I was still waiting to finish my degree.
Hmm.
So I was honestly very disheartened. Now I look back and I think, okay, 3 years doesn't really matter that much.
It
But
doesn't.
yeah, it doesn't. But at the time, it was devastating because you're young, you want to graduate, you want to get into work. So yeah, so I moved to Malaysia, where my father was based at the time, and I thought, why don't I live with him and look for work here? And then completely by chance, I followed this stationery brand on Instagram that was based out of Kuala Lumpur, and they had posted that they were looking for their first ever intern. There was just two founders at the time. So I applied for the role and got it, and I ended up working there for a year. I think they're a team of like 15, 20 now. But it was my first time working in a startup, incredibly intense and hands-on. I did the social media on paper, but honestly, as an intern at an early stage startup, you end up doing everything. So I was packing orders and talking to customers, and yeah, it was just a really, really fun roller coaster. My dad moved to the south of Malaysia, to Johor Bahru, which is on the border with Singapore. I moved with him and I attempted to find work there because this was my last and final year of being able to defer my degree. So I found a job again very serendipitously through a posting called, well, there's this company organization in Johor Bahru that organizes all the arts events in the city. So they were hiring volunteers for the one-off film festival. So I thought I have some free time. Why don't I just volunteer for this film festival? And then I did it and we ended up getting along really well, me and the team. And they were like, do you want a full-time role and handle our community full-time? And I thought, yeah, I mean, I get to live at home. I've got another year. Why not save up more money? And so that's what I did. I worked in the film and art circuit in southern Malaysia for a year. Honestly, now I say these 3 years, it sounds so eclectic and full of adventures.
Every portion of your journey has been distinct and it's pretty interesting. So now you're back in India. Now let's talk about your experiences of moving to India. How did you feel back to be in your own country?
Wow, I could write a whole book on this.
You should.
Yeah, maybe I should. Honestly, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if back to India is even the way I looked at it because I was just coming to another foreign country.
Hmm.
By this point, I had moved to different countries, adapted quickly, gotten used to the culture, and moved on. India was a whole other ball game because I moved here and I felt so out of place for the first 2 years, which hasn't happened with me anywhere else. It hasn't taken me that long to adapt. And there's a number of factors, but I think first of all, this kind of caught me off guard because I'm like, I'm 26, I have an Indian passport, I am completely Indian. I've spent my whole life proving to other countries that I'm Indian. I come here and and I feel like a complete outsider. And I knew language wasn't the issue. Back then, I didn't speak any Hindi. I felt like even in English speaking circles, I was kind of treated like this, NRI, outsider, she doesn't get it, that kind of thing. And I faced a lot of taunts about my accent. I still do, but that's something that people really fixated on back then, at least, was the fact that I sounded different. Like I look like you, but I sound different. And that put up a lot of barriers that I didn't want there. The things that frustrated me about India are the same things I love now, actually. Back then, coming from Singapore, Malaysia, the UK, these are regimented, highly scheduled, organized countries. You come to India and it feels like there's absolute chaos. I couldn't understand why the AC guy said he would come at 10 a.m. and it's like 3 p.m. and there's no sign of him. I didn't understand when I invited friends for dinner, they'd be, according to me, 2 hours late. There was a lot of things that I just didn't get. And also the way plans were made very spontaneously, something that I love now. But back then I was very rigid. I thought, no, no, my Wednesday night is busy. I'll meet you next Thursday. But then I realized that kind of scheduling doesn't work here. The number one thing that probably confused and frustrated me the most was the noise. Now I'm extremely used to it, but my poor father had to deal with me dealing with this noise issue. I think I really struggled with the fact that, according to me, back then, again, I felt it was very rude to be doing a celebration late at night without considering other people. And I was like, why can't there be rules around this? And then my dad says, there are rules, but no one listens. So I really struggled with that. Like, my idea of, these guys are being rude or these guys are being disrespectful. But at the end of the day, I realized India is just the land of celebrations, and you either join them or you suffer through it. But see, look, for 4 years after those 2 years of madness, I am absolutely in love with India, absolutely in love with life here. And I honestly, I went back to the UK last year for 2 months, thinking, this will be my great return, and I will be so excited about moving back and finding jobs there. But yeah, I found it very cold.
Uptight.
Uptight is the word. Yeah, cold, uptight. And after living in India, it's very hard to like un-Indiafy yourself.
You started liking the masala.
Yeah, that too, that too. I like flavor in food now.
Okay, great, wonderful. So I saw in your LinkedIn that
Mhm.
you have worked in learning and development.
This was a very interesting shift in my career because, as you know, I was in content. That's how I started writing in tech. And then Head Out, where I was working, is incredibly well structured and organized. And there's so much room for growth there, which was one of my favorite things about working there. So I remember noticing, I mean, I worked very much in content, but I remember noticing the customer experience people always coming to our content team for, please write this template for me to a customer, or please help me chat with this customer, I'm struggling. And I noticed there was a gap between understanding customers from different backgrounds, because Headouts customers are international. Our customer experience team, many who have maybe never left India or maybe have not experienced as much of the world as they've wanted to. And I saw a gap in not just communication, but also cultural awareness. For example, why is this guy getting mad that he doesn't have his tickets? The event is 1 day away, he has time. So in India, this chalta hai culture sometimes clashed with our international customers' expectations of, I've bought tickets, I'd like to see them ASAP. I told my manager, I said, hey, why don't we conduct some training and like sensitivity awareness and things like that? Head Out being Head Out, they were like, go for it. So I set up a team, three of us, within the larger learning and development team. And we basically conducted training on communication, writing, cultural sensitivity. So I took on that role as kind of a side passion at Head Out.
Coming back to content writing, I am connected to so many content people. What tips or advices can you give for the content writers of today?
Of today is very pertinent because now we have ChatGPT, a real existential crisis more than anything. One thing that for now AI can't replace, or we can't use AI for, is telling our own stories and using our own voice. And no one can actually sit down and tell you my story with these intricate details because some of them are not on the internet. And I would say that there is huge scope and room for writers to use their voice. One thing I've noticed is writers in tech roles were increasingly being asked or gently encouraged to use GPT as much as possible, which I understand for kind of menial tasks and such. But I really think that as a writer, please hold on to your voice, hold on to your unique story and the way you put things together, because that will get you much further than GPT generated templates and writing. I know it's very tempting, but all the marketing campaigns are starting to look similar already. Lots of taglines are starting to look similar. So don't lose that creative juice, whether you get it from reading or walking, or all of us have our different sources of inspiration. Don't lose sight of those and become overly dependent on AI.
So, when you say voice, what exactly do you mean? Can you elaborate?
Yeah. So, see, if I write on my blog and you give it to any of my close friends and you don't tell them who's written that piece, they would very quickly tell you that I had written it because I express myself in a certain way that other people would express themselves in different ways. There are certain words, phrases, my style of sentences that I do that are very unique to me. And that is similar for many writers. You read anything by Sally Rooney, without knowing Sally Rooney wrote it, you'll know it was her.
Something like a signature.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that about music directors. But yeah, here we go. Wonderful. So we talked a lot about your travel and your work. Now let's talk about your hobbies and interests. What do you do? Of course, you have lived in so many countries, so it could have varied from place to place. But right now, what's your hobbies and interests that you do apart from work?
Yeah, that's a very good point that it varies from place to place. I think a lot of people don't realize that. But so much of what you do outside of work is shaped by who you're surrounded by. And interestingly, India is the country where I've gotten really into running. I've been running for over a year now. And the reason I say it's interesting is because India is not the most conducive place to get into sports, I feel. I feel like there's a lot of friction. Like in the UK, for example, it's extremely easy to be in sports, even as a profession. I'm not saying it's not competitive, but I'm saying that there's ways in. Now, running is simply put on your shoes and go run, genuinely. You don't have to book a court, you don't have to like pay anything apart from your shoes. You can just go out there and run. And I think as a woman in India, it's also extremely empowering to be able to go do that, to go lace up and run on the streets and not feel a thing, just feel confident and empowered. And this is one of the reasons I run. It's a confidence booster. It's also hugely meditative for me. If I've had a stressful day at work, it's an incredible way to switch off and just be with the thoughts. I'm also really into street photography, another thing that is I had before I came to India, but it's definitely amplified here. India is so inspiring. Streets are full of action and liveliness, and yeah, those are my two biggest passions.
Great. Anything else? Indoors, games?
No games. I don't like board games and video games and things. I do read quite a bit. I've been trying to read more Indian authors. Yeah.
With your wide experience throughout the world, now you look at the society around you, especially in India. What are the societal issues that bother you, that you're doing something about, or you want to do something about?
Yeah, great one. I think I'm quite outspoken, so I hope that's my way of contributing or making an impact. See, I think I live in Ahmedabad, right? So it's not a tier one metro city where people are more cosmopolitan, more open. And so even at the beginning and now, I struggle a lot with the conservatism around existing. As a girl, I mean, just now actually, I went out for dinner wearing shorts. And as a girl wearing shorts, being stared at is one thing, but people also look down upon you. They frown at you. They're like, why are you dressing like that? So indecent. And all the countries I've listed that I've lived in, I've never faced any issue, including the Gulf. Across Cairo, I mean, people were very tolerant across Cairo, Dubai, wherever. Of course, Dubai is more exposed to expats. But yeah, I think the one thing I struggle with a lot is the kind of judgment women get sometimes for just existing. I have friends whose parents have these ideals that they should only get married to girls who can cook well, who are ready to give up their jobs for them, who are ready to dress a certain way, act a certain way. And I highly disagree with this inequality. My friends who have grown up here around my age, all millennials, they disagree with me. They think that, women have their space and men have theirs. So I'm very outspoken about this with my friends and their parents and things. When it comes to actually bringing about change, I don't know if I'm capable of changing anything.
We all change the world in our own ways. You won't realize.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do defy a lot of rules. When my male friends say to me, please wear shorts sorry, please wear trousers when you come meet my parents. I'm like, no, like, why are you telling me how to dress? I'm quite outspoken and defiant and stubborn that way, but usually ends well, luckily.
I would like you to take a moment to think back about all we spoke till now and figure out if we have missed anything that you want to talk about in this podcast.
I think we've covered quite a lot of things, right?
We did, we did. I'm just making sure that you haven't missed anything that you wanted to talk about. That's all.
Yeah, you somehow managed to extract a lot of great stuff. Yeah, like I just thought like the countries, the childhood belief system was my favorite question. India. Yeah, I think if there's anything else, of course, go for it.
I think we have covered pretty much everything that I wanted to talk to you about. Just one final thing as we come towards the end of the podcast. Do you have any questions for me or about the podcast?
I have been listening to the other episodes and I don't have any questions as of now.
I wish you all the best for your life and whatever you aspire to do in life. Please take care and bye for now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
That was a great podcast with Saloni Miglani. Please subscribe to this channel and follow it for more awesome podcasts. Opinions expressed by the guests in this podcast are their own. The host or the sponsors of the podcast do not condone the opinions expressed by the guests or the actions arising out of those opinions. Any decisions or actions that the listeners might take as a result of listening to this podcast must be based on their own judgment and will be at their own risk. The podcast host or their sponsors will not be held responsible for the consequences of any actions and or decisions taken as a result of any content in this podcast.